Hello, welcome to our guided notes on solving division equations using multiplication. Before we start this, we need to just go over a few little details that we're going to need. For instance, if I want to write the number 3 as a fraction, I can write it as 3 over 1. Those are equivalent, meaning they look different, but they have the same meaning in math. I could also write the number -4 as -4 over 1. Again, they have the same meaning, and so we're going to use this concept as we go through this. So the directions say solve the following equations using multiplication. Be sure to show the inverse operation, opposite operation, on both sides. Show each step and circle your solution. Also, this is going to be a great idea for us to check our solution. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is, before we begin solving our first problem on letter A, I want you to write the original equation, but where the variable n is, I want you to leave it blank. So I'm going to write this n, so I'm leaving the n alone, divided by 5. So we're leaving that blank where the n is, because we're going to insert our solution in a minute, equals 3. This is what we're given, and this is what we're going to check in a few minutes. So let's start the solving process. Again, when we solve, we build a wall. We look on the side where the variable is, and we ask ourselves what's being done to the variable, or what operation are we seeing. And we say Cn divided by 5. So the opposite of division would be multiplication. And the number we want to go away basically is 5. So we want to undo dividing by 5. And so that would mean that we would multiply by 5. But because this resembles a fraction, we're going to write 5 as a fraction. So I'm going to multiply by 5 over 1. So 5 over 1 is the same thing as 5. So I'm going to multiply by 5 over 1. This is the opposite of dividing by 5. And on the other side, I have to multiply by 5 also. But because this 3 is a whole number, I don't necessarily need to write 5 in fraction form. I can write multiplying by 5 as I normally see it. So I'm going to write times 5. So before we move on, let's check this out. Are we doing the same thing on both sides of our equation? Well, we are. They just look a little bit different. 5 is written as 5 over 1 on this side, and 5 is written as a whole number on this side. But they mean 5, and we are multiplying. We're doing exactly the same thing on both sides. So here's what will occur, and we're going to do this a long way right now. 5 times n would give me 5n. 1 times 5 would give me 5. And what happens is 5 divided by 5 is 1, and that's how we get our n isolated. On the other side, it's a little bit easier to do. We just take 3 times 5 and get 15. So the reason we're going to check this is this was a little bit more complicated than what we've been doing. And n equals 15. We think that that's our solution. So I'm going to replace 15 where the n was in our original equation, and then ask, is this true? Is 15 divided by 5 equal to 3? Well, when I take 15 divided by 5, I do get 3. And so I now know that my solution is correct. So this is quite the process, and it's very can be challenging when you first see it. So let's try this again. We're going to start with letter B. This is y divided by 10. We want 10 to go away. We want divided by 10 to go away. We want the y. We want to isolate y. So the opposite of dividing by 10 would be to multiply by 10. However, as you can see, this looks like a fraction, y divided by 10. So I'm going to make 10 look like a fraction as I multiply. So I'm going to take 10 over 1, still means 10, and I'm going to multiply it on this side. On the other side, I have to do exactly the same thing, only I'm going to choose to use 10 as a whole number. So just to verify, are we doing the same thing on both sides? And if we look at this, we are multiplying and we're using 10. We're just using 10 in different forms. So it doesn't matter that we're showing 10 first on this side and 10 second on this side. Order doesn't matter when we multiply. So now, if you recall, when we multiply and we're using fraction form, the numerator times the numerator, 10 times y would give us 10y. Denominator times the denominator, that would give us 10. And on the other side, 6 times 10 would be 60. Now, we just have one more step. We don't want to see this 10y over 10. In fact, if I look at that, I can realize, oh, 10 divided by 10 is 1. So this becomes a coefficient of 1, and 1 times y is y. So y equals 60. So in order to check that, again, I'm going to write the original problem without the y. So y divided by 10 equals 6. That's the original problem without the y. And we now think that y is 60. So I'm going to put 60 divided by 10 is 6. And that is true because 60 divided by 10 is 6, and 6 equals 6. So that's true. Would you pause the video now and try C on your own, and then look back, check back for the answer. All right, we need to multiply by 3 on both sides, and on the right side it led to 3b divided by 3, and again this gives us our coefficient of 1, leaving b, which is what we want, isolate our variable, and b equals 12. So we think this is the answer. So let's check it. I wrote the original problem here without the variable b, and we're going to replace b with 12. So where the b should be, we're going to replace it with 12 and ask ourselves, is this correct? 12 divided by 3 is 4, and 4 does equal 4. So it checks. That is our solution. So there's one more problem I'd like to try to get together because of the way it's written, and then I'd like you to do the rest of this front side on your own. Let's look at letter F. Letter F is written what we sometimes refer to as backward. I'm going to go ahead and solve it as is, but we could, just so you know, we could rewrite it as y over 4. Okay, so I'm just going to switch sides. Y divided by 4 equals 11. So we can always switch the sides if we're uncomfortable with how it's written. But I also want to show you that we can solve it as is. So we'd start the solving step by building our wall. I look at the side where the variable is. So I'm going to start on this side. Y divided by 4. So I want to undo divided by 4. So I'm going to choose to multiply by 4, but I'm going to write it as a fraction because that's what y divided by 4 looks like. On the other side, I don't need to write 4 as in fraction form. I'm just going to write it as 4 because 11 is a whole number. On the right side, I'm going to get 44, and on the left side, when I multiply straight across, y times 4, in math we always prefer to see the number first. Instead of y4, we'd rather write it as 4y. And 4 times 1 is 4. This allows us to get a coefficient of 1, leaving the variable y on the right side, and 44 on the left side. This is our solution. Thanks for watching, and please try D and E on your own. We'll share out next time we see each other.